All right, welcome. Today we're diving into something really fascinating, a connection that's kind of hiding in plain sight within centuries of Islamic scholarship. We're talking about the profound respect for the Prophet's family, but found in classical Sunni texts. Let's get right into it.
So let's start with a question that on the surface might seem to have a really simple answer. Are certain beliefs about the special status of the Prophet's family, are those exclusively a Shia thing? Well, as we're about to see, the historical picture is way more complex.
First up, let's just lay out the common assumption. This is the baseline, the way many of us are taught to see the two largest branches of Islam.
Generally, the thinking goes something like this. The idea that Ali ibn Abi Talib and his family, the al-Bayt, have this special, divinely ordained role, that's seen as a defining feature of Shia theology. It's often presented as a clear line in the sand, separating it from Sunni belief. But, and this is where it gets really interesting, what happens when we just push aside the modern labels for a second and dive straight into the vast ocean of classical Sunni literature? That's what we're going to do today. We're going to investigate the evidence in the texts themselves.
Okay, let's start with our first case study, and this one takes us all the way back to the very beginning, to the story of Adam and his plea for forgiveness from God. The Qur'an tells us that after the whole garden episode, Adam received some words from his Lord, and these words led to his forgiveness. I mean, this verse is absolutely foundational to the idea of repentance in Islam. Which, of course, leads to the big question that scholars have been digging into for centuries. What were these incredibly powerful divine words? What did he say that was so effective it secured his pardon?
Well, it turns out that within the rich tradition of Qur'anic commentary, known as Tafsir, a very specific answer starts to appear in some key narrations, an answer that involves 5 sacred names. According to these accounts, the words Adam was taught were actually a prayer, an intercession, asking for forgiveness through the names of the Prophet Muhammad and his immediate family. This story presents these 5 figures as a means of seeking God's mercy, right from the dawn of humanity. It's an incredible idea.
Now, this is the really crucial part. This story isn't tucked away in some obscure text. It's actually cited by absolute giants of Sunni Qur'anic interpretation. We're talking about scholars like Ibn Kathir and al-Razi. These are foundational, mainstream sources within the Sunni tradition itself. Okay, let's move on to our second case study, and you'll see how this theme continues to build. This one centers on a verse about God's support for the Prophet Muhammad at a really critical moment. So the verse says that God supported the Prophet with his divine help and with the believers. On the face of it, seems pretty straightforward, but the interpretation of that phrase, the believers, is where we find another fascinating layer of meaning. The mainstream Sunni interpretation, which you'll find in commentaries by scholars like al-Tabari, sees the believers as, a group, all the Prophet's companions. But there's another reading, also preserved in Sunni sources, that says this isn't about a group at all. It's about one specific person, Ali ibn Abi Talib. So where does this special reading even come from? Well, it's linked to this incredibly powerful narration about an inscription that was said to be on the very throne of God. This narration, which you can find in a few different versions, claims that written right on God's throne are the words, "Muhammad is my servant and my messenger. I aided him with Ali." I mean, wow. It couldn't be more explicit in connecting Ali to that divine support mentioned in the Qur'an.
And again, let's look at the sources. This isn't from some fringe group. This specific narration is recorded in major Sunni Hadith and virtue collections, put together by heavyweight scholars like al-Suyuti, Ibn Asakir, and al-Tabari. It just brilliantly shows you how much diversity there is within the tradition.
Okay, so we've got these 2 case studies on the table now. Let's circle back to that assumption we started with and see how it holds up.
And here's the key takeaway. The existence of these traditions doesn't erase or replace the mainstream interpretations. Not at all. What it does is reveal that classical Sunni literature is a much richer, more complex tapestry that our modern, neat and tidy labels often make it out to be.
These narrations represent what you might call a special reading of these key moments in sacred history, and the fact that they were so carefully preserved and passed down for generations, it suggests that early scholars really valued recording different viewpoints, even if they weren't the dominant one.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Knowing that this level of diversity was just there in these classical texts,
How does that change the way we understand these traditions and the lines we draw between them today? It's a powerful reminder that history is almost never as simple as we think.